graduated from North Carolina Central University and has received her Master of Science degree in nursing from East Carolina University. She also holds a certification in the care of adult medical and surgical patients. She is a wife, mother, and born again child of the Most High King.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Family Health Matters. I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers, and we are live in the studio on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM for Family Health Matters, where we believe and we know the health of our families matter. So we are here every Thursday from 3 to 3:30. So I invite you to join us where you can learn something about the family, something about health and the well-being of our families. So today we're going to do part two of a series that we started at the beginning of the month when we were talking about domestic violence, because this November, excuse me, October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. So I have a special guest with me today in the studio. I have Laura Keene, who is the executive director of the Center for Family Violence Prevention. As she said, it was a mouthful, but it's a very, very worthwhile center and very definitely needful. So, welcome, Laura, to Family Health Matters. I'm so glad you could be here with us on today. So, welcome to Family Health Matters.
Thank you for having me. This is an important topic, and I love to share information about our center and do whatever we can to raise community awareness and hopefully prevent domestic violence.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's going to start us off with our talk for the day. I just wanted to just share at the beginning of the month, we had the domestic awareness prevention luncheon, which was a huge success. And I just want to say hats off to you, Laura, and to all of your staff and everybody who had something to do with the event. It was wonderful. The attendance was outstanding. I was really excited, and most of all, I was glad to be in the midst. So you guys did an awesome job, and we appreciate all that you do. And our speaker that day, Dr. Bird, was wonderful, and she had been on the radio broadcast before prior to the event. So we are so glad that now you're bringing up the rear. So Laura,
do that.
So, Laura, as we begin to talk about domestic violence prevention, tell us a little bit about what you do at the center, and also why is this such a passion for you?
Well, I started volunteering with this organization in the early 1990s, giving away my age here, but and have grown with the agency from volunteer positions through serving on the board of directors, working in the retail stores, and now in this position. And once you get involved and understand the depth of the problem in the community and how many people suffer from this horrible situation, the Department of Justice tells us that 1 in 3 women will suffer abuse of some form in their lifetime, and the numbers run from 1 in 5 to 1 in 8 men, depending on who you listen to. So it's a pervasive problem. Our agency provides service to close to 1,000 victims every year, and for a community this size, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And we feel that we need to continue our work and that more can be done.
Wow, that's impressive. And we, like I said earlier, we're glad that you are here. So glad that you're here. Now, you mentioned in your tenure there, retail. So what does the center offer? What can people find there, or what kind of resources is offered there?
Well, we have 3 retail stores or resale stores. My sister's closet, which is resale for women's clothes and accessories. My sister's attic, which is resale for furniture and home goods. And then we have a small, more boutique type store in Farmville that's a combination of both.
Oh,
And
wow.
the stores, my sister's closet opened gosh, 25, 26 years ago, um, as a revenue stream for the agency to raise money to help us continue our work. But it's turned out to be a lot more than that. It is a site where victims can come in and maybe have that first conversation. It's not quite as intimidating as maybe making an appointment and going to an office and sitting down and talking to somebody. They just might casually mention their situation, find out what services we offer, and then can determine that they'd like to work with us further. We've had clients come in the store, or potential clients come in the store, a victim, and disclose that her abuser was in the car outside and she was afraid to go back out. So we had one of our advocates come to the store and took her out the back door and
Wow.
entered her into our program from the store. So that's a benefit. And we also provide clothing to clients who need it. Clients who come to us literally with the shirt on their back because they've left in an emergency situation, or clients that have been at home and have not been in the workforce but now need to be, and they don't have clothing to dress appropriately for a job interview or if they're hired to go to work. So those clothes are donated to them, and the same thing with furniture from the attic when they're setting up their own new safe homes. And we help with that as well.
Wow, that's awesome. That is great. So now, and I know this is for Pitt County, well, in this area. I'm not just saying just Pitt County, but in this area. So if somebody was to go to one of your sister um uh I want to say stores.
Yes.
Now, do they ask there what can they find, or are these things sold to them, or do they go to the
Generally,
center, or what? How does that work?
generally, they'll work with one of our court advocates or one of our counselors, or maybe a case manager at the safe house to determine what they need. And then that employee will give them a voucher.
Uh,
And they can go over and there's no charge for what they receive, but the voucher will have a value on it and they can shop within that amount.
uh,
And if our staff determines they need help, maybe choosing what's appropriate to where to work or for a job interview, they've got that advice coming as well.
oh wow. Okay. That's great. That's great. And if somebody out in our community wanted to make a donation, be it financially or clothing or furniture, how would they go about doing that?
Well, financial donations can be either a check or cash to us. They could go to our website and there's a donate option on there. So you can donate with a credit card or through PayPal. If you want to donate merchandise for the stores, you just simply take it to the stores. Anytime you can drop off clothing and accessories at the closet. There are, I think, 3 days a week. You can drop off items at my sister's attic. We also do consignments there. So if you want to consign materials, we ask you to make an appointment so that we can give good attention to what you're bringing in and make sure that it's all entered in the computer and everybody gets the right credit and therefore the right payment when those items are sold. So for the attic, maybe reach out with a phone call first.
Mhm.
At the closet, you can just take what you've got whenever.
Okay, great. Now you mentioned a website. So what is the website if somebody was to look for it?
Okay, it's C, the letter C, the number 4, and then FVP, abbreviated for Center for Family Violence Prevention.org.
Okay,
There's
great.
all sorts of information about our agency, our services, job opportunities, just general information on domestic violence, and then the opportunity to make a donation.
Oh, great, great. Thank you for sharing that with us. And if anybody out there wants to join the conversation on today, the number you can call into is 252-756-2008. 252-756-2008. So if you want to join in on the conversation, or if you have some questions that you want to ask Ms. King, call us in and we will definitely get the answer for you. And if you need something from us on today, feel free to give us a call. So thank you for sharing that about the center. I appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit about people. How would you define or describe domestic violence and or domestic abuse? I know some people say they want to use the word abuse versus violence. So tell us a little bit about, is that interchangeable or is there two totally different definitions? What are your thoughts on that?
For a broad definition, domestic abuse is probably the most accurate. All abuse does not include violence. And just because a victim is not being physically abused doesn't mean they're not being abused. Domestic abuse, basically, very simply, is one human being trying to gain and maintain control over another human being and doing whatever's necessary to make that happen, up to and including homicide. So you can live in an abusive relationship without suffering violence. Some typical forms of abuse are financial abuse, where the abuser controls real property. The abuser's name is the sole name on the home. The abuser's name may be the sole name on the vehicles. They may control the insurance policy, the bank accounts. The money's in there. The victim can't access it. They may get a small allowance to run the home, but they don't have control over the money. There's control over the social life. The abuser controls who the friends are, what family members they see. The victim is frequently separated and isolated from friends and family that might step up to support them. So there's all forms, and then there's just a pattern of constant ridicule and demeaning behavior that just wears the victim down to the point they've lost their self-confidence, their belief in themselves, their self-image, how they value and appreciate their own appearance, until they believe that there's just nothing for them outside of that home or that relationship.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that with us. So now, just going off of that, and people often would say, and it's easier said than done. Why don't they leave?
Well, like I said, they have very little control over any kind of assets, so that when they leave, finances are very meager. They don't have the money to go and do and make a new home. There's also threats. If you leave me, I will kill you. If you leave me, I'll kill our children or your family, or I'll kill myself, and you'll have to carry that guilt. So there's that sort of threat. I'll cut you off financially. I'll report you to Child Protective Services because you're a horrible mother, and I'll even lie and tell them things, and you'll never see your children again. I think illegal immigrants are particularly vulnerable to that threat, because the threat is, you're illegal, the children aren't. I'll report you to immigration. You'll be deported. The children are citizens. They'll stay here and you'll never see them again. So there's all sorts of levels of pressure exerted on that victim.
Wow. Yeah. And so now, I know you mentioned that. So how do, I guess, just sort of helping the audience in our, in our families, how do we talked a little bit about this in part one, but how do you recognize if somebody is in an abusive situation or in a domestic violence relationship? Is that something that we as family members or community, how can we recognize that, or how can we help with that?
if you have a family member who's being isolated from you, who seems to perhaps withdraw, um, and not engage with you or family activities anymore, that could be because they're not allowed, or because they're embarrassed about the way they're treated. You can see situations where the abuser, or who you think might be an abuser, is very controlling about what happens within the family, where they live, whose job, what kind of job you might have access to, or maybe forbidden to have a job. Just total manipulation. And
Mm.
that's a key sign to an abusive relationship. It's you're looking for one person controlling another. And then of course, if it has become violent, you're looking for wounds, bruises, somebody wearing a turtleneck or long sleeves in hot weather when it seems inappropriate, but they're covering up something.
Ah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So then what do we do? What are our options as a family member or as community? What and not I won't say option, what are our responsibility towards our loved one?
I would encourage you to just to ask, "Are you okay? I'm concerned about you." Um, I would tell you to avoid telling them what they ought to do. Abuse victims are being controlled and told what to do all day,
Mm.
every day. And if you're reaching out to them, you don't want to continue that. What you want to do is impress on them that you love them, that you support whatever decision they make, and that they have options. And what we want to do is make sure that they have the opportunity to choose and exercise those options. There are choices, and there's help, and there's hope, and encourage them to talk to somebody that can help them. And if they say no and they're not ready, don't get angry, don't turn your back. Let them know that you're there and you'll be there when they are ready.
Oh, I love that. I
Mhm.
love that. I love that because we're so quick to give our opinion or what we think if we were in that situation, what I would do or what you ought to do. But you
Exactly.
have to think about that if somebody is in that type of situation and they're constantly being told what to do, then the next step for them to do is they're going to regress back and not
Mhm.
be there. So as long as you can reach out to them and have them sort of interact with you, there is, hope that you can do something to
Exactly.
encourage them to make some better choices or help them just like you said, the resources
Mhm.
that are there.
Actually, as a part of our counseling service, we do counsel domestic violence victims, but we can also counsel family members. If you're worried about a family member and you want to come in and talk to a counselor about that specific situation, they can help you make a plan and guide you through your approach to this person, so that you don't do more harm than good when you're trying to help.
Oh, that's very good to know.
Mhm.
That's very good to.
Mhm.
And now let's talk now. This I know is what's in place here. So now if somebody was listening, but
Mhm.
they're not in Pitt County or in the surrounding areas,
Mhm.
what would be your suggestion as far as a go-to resource? What's on the I know everything's on the internet, but how would they go about finding things?
Right. Our agency provides service to Pitt, Martin, and Washington counties. So
Okay.
we have a small office in Williamston and a small office in Plymouth, auxiliary to what's going on here in Pitt County. So those counties we cover, and you could still reach out to us for that. I would probably go online if you have access to the internet, and I would Google domestic violence services in whatever county
Mhm.
you're located. There are 86 agencies in North Carolina, 100 counties. So some agencies cover more than one, like we do, but you could find your local service provider that way.
Okay, great, great. So there is help and there is
Mhm.
resources out there
Exactly.
if you want to do it. And I think one of the things you said that they have to be ready. The
Mhm.
person has to be ready to make those availability. But what do you have for children? Is there not that they're in well, when they're involved in the family, but what kind of resources are there if a child, or you
Well,
think a child is involved?
mhm. Children are housed in our safe house, just like the parent who is a victim. So we have children's services in the safe house. Uh, we have rooms where mom or dad, whoever's the victim, can keep the children there with them. We have beds with trundles. We have, for larger family groups, we have the bed and the trundle and bunk beds so that the family is kept together. We have play space and services for the children. We also have a children's counselor on our staff, and they can work with the kids. These children have seen a lot. They've witnessed a lot. They've been traumatized. They've been now pulled out of their home. They don't know what's going on. They're probably missing the parent who is the abuser. And so they need help too. And we try to acknowledge what they're going through and provide them with the support that they need. One thing I feel like I need to back up, if a victim is considering leaving, I want anybody in that situation to know that leaving is the most dangerous thing
Mm.
that they could probably do at that point. Leaving is the ultimate loss of control. And we've talked about how this situation is all about control. So an abuser gets pretty desperate to regain control. And when a victim's leaving, that's a big challenge. And so this is where things go wrong really quickly. Statistically, a victim's chances of being murdered increase 75%
Wow.
when they leave. And if you watch the news and you hear about domestic violence homicides, you will see that most of the time it's in a situation where the victim has left and they're being stalked and pursued, or the victim is planning to leave or trying to leave. So this is a situation where we would really encourage you to come forward to get help and let our staff help with a safety plan. Plan how to leave safely, when to leave, what you need to take with you, insurance documents, phone numbers for physicians, medical records for your children, shot records, all these things that you're going to need moving forward that you may not be able to go back and get. And so we can help prepare for that exodus in the safest way possible.
Oh, that's a good point, because the plan, they
Right,
have a
right.
plan instead of, unless it's an emergency. I think
Exactly.
you said
If it's an emergency,
emergencies.
you reach out to law enforcement and do it. If
Right.
somebody's holding a gun to your head, that's not the time to talk about a safety plan. But you
But I think we find that to be successful,
mm,
most of the time with anything, not just leaving from
mm,
domestic violence, but with anything, is having a plan,
mhm,
because then you know your
mhm,
strategies. You know what you're going to do, who you need to have involved, what
mhm,
resources that you have. So I think that's awesome that you said that, and
mhm,
backed up to say that,
mhm,
because you need to have a plan, because you want to make sure that if you do it and plan it out, that you're able to stay.
mhm.
That it's not going to be something that you plan, you leave, and then you have to end up coming back. Because I can imagine that the situation would be even more desperate if you end up have to return.
That's true. At the same time, an abuser will do everything to lure a victim back.
Mhm.
Statistically, and this is one that's always astounded me, statistically, a victim will leave and return 7 times
Oh,
before they
wow.
before they make the final break. Not all. Some are more, decisive, but victims are in that relationship because they want it to be. They wanted it to be a loving relationship. They wanted it to be for the rest of their life. So, if they're promised, I'll never do it again, I didn't mean to, I don't want to hurt you, I love you, and make all sorts of promises about what life moving forward is going to be like, it's easy to be lured back because that's what we all want.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. You want to be successful. You're in a relationship or you're married. Everybody wants their marriage to be successful, and you don't want to feel like you're a failure.
Exactly.
And that is one of the things that I can imagine that you would feel if, and even though you're not the person, you are not, you're not guilty of anything.
Right.
You
You're
just found
not the problem.
right. There you go. You're not the problem. You just found yourself in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't make you the bad person.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that, just in this conversation we're having, that I hope people glean from this, is that if you are in a situation like this, it doesn't make you the bad person at all. It doesn't mean that you are a failure.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that you have landed here,
Mm-hmm.
and we have resources to help you find your way out.
Exactly.
And help your family to find your way out.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we want to have this show, and to share this information with you, so that you'll be informed. And if anybody is aware of somebody that's in a situation, and I think you said really good earlier that the hardest thing, somebody that knows somebody, is to ask the question, is this going on?
I read something once. A woman who had been abused was talking about that and how important it is to reach out to help people. And she just said, if you do that, you're probably going to embarrass the victim. But embarrassment's not what kills them. And I always keep going back to that. And if you want to talk to a loved one, do it.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people are waiting sometimes for somebody to show that they are concerned.
Exactly.
And that opens the door when you do ask. And you don't have to be what people call nosy or busybody, but you have to ask out of concern and be prepared. If that person says yes, I need some help, don't just walk up, but you need to have something in your mind if you're going to bring this conversation up, that you need to have some education, which we're providing today.
Exactly right.
Have some resources so that you can be somebody that can be helpful, and not just, offering and not really following through. Because if somebody says yes, that means that they are ready and they want to do something about their situation. So Laura, anything pressing, we got just a half a minute, that you would like to just sort of leave as a thought?
I would just say, if you're suffering abuse, you don't have to, and that there's help and there's hope. And when you come to us, nobody here is going to tell you what to do. We're going to tell you your options. We're going to tell you your legal rights and let you choose your path moving forward.
Well, thank you for those words of wisdom and encouragement. Again, I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers. We're here every Thursday from 3 to 3:30 on Family Health Matters, Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. And we are so delighted to have had Laura King with us on today. Please feel free to join us next Thursday from 3 to 3:30 on Family Health Matters, Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. Again, I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers, and we look forward to seeing you next Thursday. Thank you for joining us, and thank you to our Facebook.
Hi, I'm Travorce Newton, and I listen to Awesome Radio 106.9 FM, WBIS.
Partial funding for this program is brought to you by Blessed Hands Car Wash and Detail Plus, 2016 Chestnut Street, Springville. Vehicle